y'all, it's Katie. Welcome back to From My Vanity and welcome to a dupe video of sorts. Basically, I had my eye on this new release that Makeup Revolution sneaked on their Instagram page. I even mentioned it in a Will I Buy It? I can leave that linked up here, but it's the Forever Flawless Birds of Paradise palette. And if I can not catch my hair in it, it looks super pretty. So when I went to buy it, the day I went to buy this, I noticed that this was also in the What's New section of Ulta, and I was like, what? Did Makeup Revolution dupe their own palette? Like, what? I was so confused. I couldn't understand why they would, within one line, have a palette that on first glance online had the same exact colors in it, but one was cheaper. So I was like, why would they create... I mean, I guess it's smart to create a dupe brand, but anyway, I wanted to see what the deal was because I was like, did they just kind of take the same shadows, like literally the same shadows, and just press them into different pans and get two for the price of one with these palettes, you know what I mean? But I was just so intrigued, so I bought them both, and I have been trying them out this past month, and I'm ready to sit down and share with you guys what I found out about these palettes, and then also to talk a little bit about the quality of the shadows themselves. We're going to give little, I'm going to try to keep it brief, but give little reviews on each of the palettes, and then, yeah, give you my overall thoughts on the end. If I think that Makeup Revolution created their own dupe palette within their brand, what the deal is. So yeah, that is what we're going to talk about today. But before we do get into the nitty gritty, I do want to go ahead, cut over to previous. This is in the past at this point, but I did my makeup today and I did them on camera. I have one palette on each eye. Can you guys guess? Do they look the same? Do they look different? Which palette do you think is on which eye? You can feel free to go down below in the comments and guess, but I tried to use all those shades that were the most similar between these palettes and create a look on each eye so that you guys can see in real time as I'm putting on the shadows, and I give a little bit of commentary as I go along. But yeah, let's just go ahead and cut over to that, and then we'll get back here to talk about my final thoughts and what I think about this dupe palette within the same brand. Alright, so you're probably going to hear Levi. He is having a tense conversation with the toys on his little chair. But here are the two palettes. I'm going to put, I guess it really doesn't matter. I'm going to focus on trying to use all the mattes that are similar between the two palettes. So I think I will do, let's do the Reloaded palette on this side and then Birds of Paradise on this side. I obviously have not planned this look, but I want to start with, I'm going to put yellow on the inner corner of each of the eye looks, and I am going to just use a little color switch to clean off the brush just so I'm not getting too many brushes dirty. I do need to wash brushes. So I'm just going to put this right in here. I'm going to tap it down. He has a lot to say today. And then I'm going to blend. Okay, so now I'm going into the Birds of Paradise, tapping that on my brush. And now I'm going to do the same thing, hopefully stay in frame for you guys so you guys can see. But I'm just going to tap it in. And oops. For each of these, I'm really tapping into the shadows. Liberally. These are not heavily pigmented, so you can go with a super heavy hand, and I feel like it's not that, it's not like you're going to mess up the look. So there are the yellows. I'll close my eyes so you guys can see. I'm going to go back into the Reloaded palette and just see if I can get it a little bit more intense, because I do feel like the Birds of Paradise side, he's got a lot to say. But anyway, I'm just going to take that same brush and clean it off really well, and then we're going to go into the greens. Okay, so I'm going to go in with this green from the Reloaded Euphoria palette. Again, really pressing in there, like going to town, and then really press it in like so. Now I'm going into, this is Budgie, the lighter green in the Birds of Paradise side. Once again, really tapping in there, and then I'm going to press. Okay, so I'm going to go back into each of the yellows and just try to mesh the two. And I'm just going to kind of go like this, just to bring the yellow. This one's from the Reloaded Euphoria. Clean it off, and then go into the Birds of Paradise. Just kind of go like that. So there, that is what we have. As you can see, they're not the same, but if you wanted to follow a tutorial for either or palette, if it's yellow and greens, you really could use either or palette and I feel like get the same look. Okay, I'm gonna pause and put the little talkative me into bed, and then I'll be back to finish up this look. Okay, I am back. He's so funny because he's so like, he sounds so angry because I was what video did I just edit? Oh, my video with Annette, my collab video with Annette, and he was in there, and the whole time like he was so happy just chatting with himself, but when I was editing it, there were a couple times I was like, man, he sounds kind of mad, like I don't want anyone to think I'm sitting there ignoring him if he's getting upset and whatnot, but I promise you he isn't upset when he's making those sounds, he grunts a lot. Anyway, so we use this in the crease. Now I want to use this on the outer corner, just so you guys can see the difference, because in this palette I feel like there's more of a difference between the shade, but in this one they're very close. So we're gonna see if I can pack it on and get some kind of differentiation there. So there, as you can see, like I feel like it actually looks more like the crease shade here almost than the crease shade here did. And I'm just gonna kind of tap and then blend and try to mesh these two greens together, which shouldn't be hard since they're both greens. But yeah, there's that. Kind of just doing that right now. And then I'm gonna clean this off and grab that other side, which I know is gonna be very different jungle from the Birds of Paradise side, and tap that on. This is more of like a true deep green, whereas this is more of a lime green, but hey, perks of quarantine, I know I'm not going anywhere today. I almost feel like it's a little patchy. I don't think I've noticed it with this shade when I used it before, so maybe it's because my base, which I don't think I even said, but my base is the Gerard Cut Crease Canvas base. It is a bit drier than I feel like I typically do when I'm just doing my makeup and putting it all on there. I get to my outer corner a little faster than I did today because I had to go put Levi to bed, so maybe that's it. But yeah, there's what we got going. As you can see the difference there. Okay, for the lid shade, I'm either gonna put the blues in here because I have two blues. These two blues are very similar in the two palettes, or I'll do the coral. Decisions. I'm gonna do the blue. I feel like that's a little weird for this eye look, but that's what we're gonna do. I think it'll be pretty. We're gonna do a matte, all matte look today. It'll be fun. So I'm just gonna cut my crease out. I'm using the what do you call, Conceal and Correct in the shade White C0. Okay, I think that's pretty good. I'm gonna go in with this shade right here and lay that down on top of that. Let's hope this looks good. If you see any glitter, it's not in this shadow. It must be fallout from another shadow, or maybe when I was using this, maybe fallout from the other palette, because I was using them kind of side by side, always open and swatching them at the same time when I was doing looks to compare. So I'm not sure where that glitter, like right there and there, is coming from, but it's not in this shade as far as I can see. It looks very matte. So anyway, I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to take that green brush, go back into the darker green, make sure it's clean, tap off once, and then I'm going to use this to just mesh right here and go back and forth until I like it. Okay, and then for this palette, it does have two different types of blues, but comparing them side by side, the blue that I think will match the closest is this one. And then I'm just gonna, once again, do the same thing as the other one, take the darker green that I used in my outer corner. I'm going to tap that over to help mesh and blend. I feel like with these shadows, there's just a little bit of patchiness. It probably doesn't come across on camera, but it's definitely a darker green where the concealer is, which doesn't make sense because I made sure to put the blue down before I put the green on top to try to make sure that didn't happen. But it kind of still did, or maybe that's just the green meshing with the blue. And then there's a little bit of a sparseness here and then more pigment out here. That's what I see in person. But out here on this side, it's doing that too, but it's definitely not as bad. It's just, it's a little darker where the concealer meets, it's a little darker out here for some reason, and a little lighter in the center. Something weird that I've noticed with these palettes. But anyway, I'm gonna go into this shade here, which is like my skin tone color, or a little bit lighter for me. And I'm going to pack it on right here and just use it to blend out the edges. And I'm gonna use it for both eyes because the only one in this palette is stark white, and it's definitely, even though it's not a pigmented white, it's a very thin white. It's not what I'm going for, and I don't want to be that different. So we're gonna mesh these two together. And yeah, this is what we're going with. I'm going to go finish out the rest of my face. I got fallout. Talking about fallout, I got blue really badly here, a little bit of blue here, and then a good bit of green actually. I really don't see too much green on this side. But anyway, I'm gonna finish out my face. I'll wait to do the waterline until afterwards, but I'm gonna do my face, put my wings on, do mascara and brows, and then we'll come back to finish out the lower lash line together. If you're wondering, my highlighter is the PUR Afterglow, or PUR Illuminator highlighter in Afterglow. Really pretty. Okay, so let's finish up this look. Oh yes, and I also want to cut my crease because I always like to do that when I do an all matte look. Anyway, I'm just gonna take this really tiny brush, L04, and I'll first go in with Euphoria palette. Having to keep remember the names. I'm just going to tap this off just so I don't get fallout. And I'm just going to put it right under here, keeping it really close to the lash line. And once I finish the look up, I'll see what I want to put in the lower, or in my waterline. Okay, I'm doing a cardinal in the Birds of Paradise palette. But anyway, these definitely do pop a little bit when you put it on a tacky base, give it something to stick to. But honestly, both go on just fine with a set base. It's just maybe not quite as intense. Anyway, I don't know if I said, but I cleaned my brush off before I went between those palettes. Now I'm taking the darkest green that we use from each palette, and I'm going to connect it back. Alright, so there's what we have. I think I'm just going to put brown in my waterline, just since I have used a brown eyeliner, or liquid liner, sorry, for my wing. So I'm just going to stick brown in here. There's that. Now let's do the inner corner. I am going to use the white in here so you guys can see what the white in the Birds of Paradise palette looks like. It's Cockatoo is what it's called, and I'm going to do that for both sides. I have better white mattes, I should say, in my collection. Like, it looks like it's going to be great, and then as you kind of blend the edges and whatnot, especially as you wear it through the day, you really can't tell it's even there. Okay, so at this point I'm going to put mascara on, and then I'm just going to put this in the crease. But I'll go ahead and do that off camera just because I have to look down for a while afterwards to let it dry. So yeah, this is going to be the completed look. I'm going to go ahead and stick them close-ups after I finish out doing the glitter liner so you guys can see both sides and really tell the difference. Let me know what you guys think down below. But anyway, with all that said, yeah, let's just go back to future Katie, who's talking to you now, because I'm going to record that part after this. But finish out this video and just give you my final thoughts on these two palettes and whether they're dupes or not. Alright, so yeah, this is the finished look. Let me know what you think. I actually like how it turned out. I was a little scared to put the blue. I don't know, for whatever reason I thought it might not look so good with the yellow and green, but whatever. This is the final look. I really like how it turned out. So anyway, let's talk about these palettes, and I'm going to go ahead and just give you guys little reviews for each of the palettes first before we dive into the comparison part of this. So Birds of Paradise, this is the Flawless Forever. This is like within their Flawless Forever collection, and then this specific palette is called Birds of Paradise. Okay, for starters, let's talk about the glitters. I don't like them at all. I did one look that was like all matte, and then I wanted to pop glitter on the center, and as soon as I put this glitter on, I felt like it ruined the look. It is so dry and flaky, yet there is some type of like bonder in there that makes it want to just stick in places. So it just, I found it very hard to put on, and then just trying to apply it evenly without making it a mess. And I use glitter glue underneath this glitter and on top of it to try to seal it in, and I still got so much transfer into my crease and glitter fallout all into my lashes and all over my face. So did not like the glitters at all. Those two were out, but I kind of had a feeling I wouldn't like them, but I did want to give them a try. But let's talk about the other shimmers that I thought were shimmers in this palette, which are this shade, and this shade. They're not shimmers. They are, you know, like the ColourPop Super Shock shadows. That's what these are. They are very soft, so you can like move them around. They're just like a moussey type of formula. Very odd, weird. Kind of threw me off the first time I used it, but the first time I used it, I used this shade, and I was like, oh, that's weird. completed the look. It was fine, but I noticed it creased, so I was like, oh, that's a bummer. I'm going to try glitter glue underneath. So I did glitter glue the next day and tried to use a combination of these two, and then I ran into problems because these two, while they're beautiful, they don't perform like this one. This Exotic, I tried to use in 2 different looks, and it goes on so patchy when you use it with a brush that it just does not work. And then when you use it with a finger, it's very sheer, if you can tell. Like, it's just so sheer, there's no building up, and whatever you put on top of shows whatever texture is underneath. And then same story with this Take Flight. It's just a very sheer wash of color that, I mean, you can barely see it. So those two were a big bum. This one was okay, but once again, it creases, and even with glitter glue on top, it creases. So I was like, well, maybe I could top it with a shimmer, like a regular shimmer shade. Maybe this is just needs, like, it's more of a base, but there is no other shimmer in this palette. So I don't know, this is a gorgeous shade. Personally, I think it's very pretty, but, and it's a lot more pigmented, still sheer, but it goes on a lot more pigmented on the lid than the other two. It goes on a lot more smoothly with the lid, on the lid than the other two. I used a brush and had no problems, but it just creases so badly that I didn't really like it, but it does work nicely as an inner corner highlight. I liked it that way, but that's literally the only shade, the only type of shade in this palette that I like that wasn't matte. So right there, we weren't off to a good start. So talking about the mattes though, the mattes are okay. I think depending on what you are looking for when it comes to bright mattes, you'll either like this or hate it. For me personally, I have tried so many good matte shadows that this is a really big dud for me. I just feel like on this side where I was blending it in, it just looks patchy. It just doesn't look blended, and it looks so sheer and so soft no matter how much I was sitting there packing it on and trying to build it up. It's just very hit or miss, and the majority of the mattes in here I found just weren't that impressive. So overall, while it's not that expensive, I want to say it's like $14, maybe $12 on the Ulta website. It's not that expensive. I couldn't recommend it at all, and honestly, if Ultas were open, I'd probably go and return this. So for me, this palette is a huge dud, and I can't see myself ever recommending it. Pretty packaging, but that's where it ends for me. So now let's move over to the Reloaded Euphoria palette. The packaging is definitely more simple. It's definitely nowhere near pretty as this, but again, you're paying a lot more for this. This was $7, so a lot more affordable. Now talking about the shadows themselves, the shimmers in here are these, this one, and this one. And they're varying the intensities of shimmer, I guess you could say. Like this shade and this shade is a lot more intense than like this shade and this shade. These two are, they're more of a satiny type of tone to them. So let me figure out a good way to swatch this. So here are those shades. I think you can see, I hope I'm in frame. And the blue almost looks matte, but it's not quite matte. It's definitely a satin type of texture to it. It will behave like a matte, but it's not a true matte. So I just want to point that out there. But it is, as you can see, the most intense. This silver is nice, but these two shades is just like, the day I tried to use this all over my lid, the gold, I was just like, what on earth is this? I dug and dug and dug and dug and dug and dug and dug in there with my brush. I'm digging in there with my finger now. And like, that's it. But there's not that intensity like you would with a metallic shadow. I don't know what Makeup Revolution was doing when they were doing the shimmers or like the pop effects, the shades that weren't matte with these two palettes, because they're just all very interesting, but none of them in a good way, I feel like. So let's move on to the mattes, where I tend to like things more. The mattes in here are nice. They're a lot better. Like, as you can see on this side, I feel like it looks nice. The greens don't look as patchy as on this side, but at the same time, they still have a little bit of patchiness to them. They're really pretty. They're just very soft, but if you have a type of white base, that'll be the best effect. But for me personally, when I think about the mattes in these palette, I feel like I enjoyed the looks more so than I did the other palette because I had a black to deepen it up, and I really like that. And I'll link up here a video I did. It was showing the Samantha March collaboration, and I used this palette to create that look. And I feel like the whole look was just very stunning and beautiful, and it was honestly, I had a lot to do with this black being able to deepen it up and really get that depth that I like, that intensity, and I kind of mixed it, and I used the blues and the silvers, I think, and overall I thought the look was gorgeous. It took me a good bit of work to get there, especially with the silver shade and whatnot, trying to get that on the lid and really show up, but the final results were stunning, and I really liked it. Like, I wouldn't mind doing that look with this palette again. So while these mattes aren't my favorite, they're definitely workable. They'll get you there. They kind of remind me of the Coastal Scents Hot Pot, since I just, you know, tried them not too long ago. Kind of remind me in that sense of that. They took a little bit of work. They took a little bit of finessing. You definitely want to pack it on and just blend a little bit. You don't want to sit there and blend, or you could feel like you're just blending it away. But they're definitely easier to work with than this palette was. So in that respect, I really enjoyed this palette more than that palette. Now, do I enjoy this palette more than, I'm trying to think of another colorful palette like this in my collection. Or like the La Dolce Vita palette from Midas. It's no longer available, but they have other colorful palettes on their website. Do I like this more than that? No, I like that more, but with that said, this is more affordable. It's $7. So for $7, do I feel like you can get some pretty looks out of it? Sure. They're not going to be anything bright, intense, and neon, but I could see this being a really pretty spring palette, and for me personally, I don't mind having it in my collection as a reference point, and if I needed to create another look, I feel like I could get a really pretty look and I wouldn't be too mad at it if I use this palette. And if I just kind of relied more on the mattes or just did a look like today, all mattes, and I feel like I really like how it turned out. It's really pretty and I didn't bother with any of the shimmers. Okay, so now moving to my comparison. So right away, I feel like the biggest differences that I can tell you between these palettes is that this has glitter and weird type of shimmers like Super Shock shadows, and then this has more, they're more regular shimmers, but they're more satins and shimmers. They're still difficult to work with like these were, but at least they're more normal, I guess you could say. And then moving on from that, this has a black in it and this does not. And I feel like that was the biggest difference with looks I could get with these two palettes that I found. Anytime I created a look with this, it all had to be very bright and light. And like today, there's no depth to my look. As you can see, like it's all just very bright colors. There's no intensity or smokiness in the outer corner, which I feel like, I've mentioned this before, but I feel like for me personally, it helps ground a look. And I feel like it's the most flattering for me. Maybe that's the best way to say. Not so much comfort zone, but it's the most flattering that I find. Like when I'm editing my videos back, I find that the videos I'm able to deepen up the outer corners, I feel like just flatters me more. So with this palette having that black, I feel like I was really able to get that. This palette does not give me that at all. There's no shade in here that I can use to deepen up any look too. So that personally surprised me, kind of took me by surprise, which shouldn't be because I could see the palette before I buy it, but I didn't realize until I got it and I got these two palettes side by side and went, oh, this has a cream shade that I can use as a brow bone highlight easily, and then it has a black that I can use to deepen up any look with. This does not, and it only has a stark white shade that honestly, I don't know. I can barely see it now, so it's just not that impressive of a white. So honestly, those are the biggest difference for me. When I'm thinking about lasting power though, like with the mattes and stuff like that, how long they last and how they look, I noticed that at the end of the night, they both look very nice. There is a tiny bit, I feel like, I see a little bit of wear down or just a little bit of softening of the shades so they're not as intense as they can get at the beginning of the day, but honestly, they look pretty darn the same. There's no fading with the mattes, there's no wearing away, there's no disappearing, with the exception of this white because it's already gone in my opinion. The white is just not a good one in there. So yeah, that's honestly where the similarities and differences end. As I said, if you swatch these side by side, you could see that while the shades look similar, they definitely aren't identical. So my suspicions that they just kind of took the shades, like the formulas for these colors, and just divided them into two different palettes to create two palettes for the price of one kind of thing, that's definitely not the case with these palettes. They are different. The colors are different. They're not identical, so there is that. But when we're talking about similarities, it really ends with the quality of the mattes and the lasting power. Now, I still think that Makeup Revolution created a very similar palette within their same brand. So in that respect, I do feel like they created a dupe palette, because if you see any content creators on YouTube creating looks with this palette and you think it's beautiful and you want to recreate it, you could totally get this palette, barring that they, you know, use colors that are in here. So if they use kind of the blues and the greens, the colors I used today, you could get this palette for $7 and create the same look and you really wouldn't notice a difference. In my personal opinion, maybe you guys, if you're a little more picky about color, you'd see it differently, but that's kind of my 2 cents on whether I think they're dupes or not, and whether you could get the same kind of colors from these palettes. So you could just spend $7 and create some looks, then this $14 or $12, I forget how much this is, but instead of spending the extra money on this, because I really don't think this is worth the extra money. The only pro for this being more expensive in my eyes is the packaging. It's very beautiful, but the glitters, the shimmers, absolute crap in my opinion. I did not like them at all, so I can't say I recommend that. So yeah, that's gonna do it for this video. I feel like I'm just kind of talking in circles at this point. I hope you guys found this review helpful, this comparison video helpful. Let me know which palette you would prefer more. If you are planning on getting one of these, are you interested in buying one of them? For me personally, like I said, this one I would be fine keeping. This one, I don't know if I'll be able to by the time everything's over, if I would be able to return it, but I kind of want to return it just because overall, like I said, so many reasons why I just don't really care for that. I'm never going to want to go back to it kind of thing. But this, like I said, I wouldn't mind recreating that blue look I did. It was absolutely stunning, and maybe doing a green. You could do a green with that black. Anyway, there's just a lot more stuff I would rather do. I'm more inspired by this Reloaded Euphoria palette than I am with this palette. When I was creating looks with this palette, I kind of struggled a little bit more than with this palette. So overall, that's kind of my thoughts. I recommend the Euphoria palette over the Birds of Paradise palette, which is great because I'm recommending the cheaper one. So anyway, I hope you guys found this video helpful. Thank you guys so very much for watching. If you did like the video and found it helpful, please hit the thumbs up button on your way out. That really helps me out in the whole YouTube algorithm. But yeah, with all that said, thank you so very much for taking the time out of your day to watch another one of my videos, and I will see you very soon in my next one. Bye guys.